He lives alone on a small farm outside Curitiba. No running water, no phone signal, just forest in every direction. Before sunrise on the 31st of May, 2026, every animal on the property started panicking at once. He grabbed a bow, went out to look and found the electric fence torn down. Then from the tree line came a sound he just couldn't place. Metallic grinding, like a huge ratchet turning over and over in the dark with no machine anywhere near him. By nightfall, the lights were hovering over the ridge. He filmed them for 40 minutes. Within a week, the video had millions of views. His following had pushed past 1 million, and the messages had started to arrive. Take it down. You're dealing with people more powerful than you. This is happening in Brazil right now, this month. The farmer with the lights over his ridge is only one of them. Over the past 2 weeks, reports have been coming out of the south of the country, faster than anyone can keep up with. So let's look at what's being filmed and why Brazil, of all places, treats this differently from everywhere else. The man on the farm is Mike Leão, a 31-year-old who posts about his life on his land. His night started in the morning, with the animals throwing themselves around the pens and his fence torn off its post. Then the sound came out of the forest, overlapping metallic tones, and underneath them that slow grinding ratchet. He was alone, kilometers from the nearest help, with no signal to call anyone. When the lights appeared after dark, they sat over a forested ridge and a river more than 3 kilometers away. He watched them for the better part of an hour and filmed on his phone at full zoom, which is why the footage is a soft, shaky smear. He says he came away feeling like he'd been handed something he still can't describe, and that he didn't sleep for days. Then it spread. His following jumped from around 46,000 to over 1 million. He says the threats came with it, telling him to delete everything, warning him he was up against powerful people. He refused, and he refused the easy explanations too. He knew this wasn't a drone or a publicity stunt. The official response is the part worth focusing on. The Brazilian Air Force, through its Airspace Control Department, said no unknown object showed on air defense radar that night, and the local airports reported nothing. And a MUFON Brazil investigator, Elaine Mota, gave the careful, safe version. The footage shows a luminous phenomena that needs proper analysis, and you rule out the ordinary causes like weather and reflected light before you call it anything at all. Campo Largo was the spark, not the whole fire. Within days, the reports multiplied. On the Paraná coast at Pontal do Paraná, cameras pointed at the sea picked up luminous points hanging over the water. In Goiás, a resident of Chapada dos Veadeiros filmed lights drifting between the mountains. In the hills above Bento Gonçalves in Rio Grande do Sul, a woman filmed lights over her house. Brazilian outlets started calling it a wave. Now the honest part, because this is where most channels would lie to you, not all of this holds up. The footage from the Paraná coast was later found to predate the recent sightings, with no proven connection at all, even though it got pulled into the same story. And CNN Brazil made a counterpoint. These reports cluster in remote places, with high ground and almost no light pollution, exactly where a single light in the sky has nothing to compete with. Some of it is recycled, and some of it has simple explanations, so hold on to that. But the volume is real, and so is the fact that people in 3 different states pointed their phones at the same kind of object in the same 2 weeks. Here's what makes Brazil different. Most governments treat these reports as an embarrassment to be buried. Brazil doesn't. It's one of the few countries that openly investigates them with no real stigma attached. Its National Archive holds a large public collection of UFO photographs and military files going back decades. When something shows up in Brazilian skies, it tends to be a paper trail. And this is far from the country's first wave. The famous case of Varginha in January 1996, where 3 young women said they crossed a vacant lot in a small town of Minas Gerais and saw a strange creature with an oversized head and dark skin. The story reached the world. The military denied any contact with anything. No physical proof ever surfaced. But the town did something telling. It leaned all the way into this. There's a 100,000-litre water tower built in the shape of a flying saucer, and grey alien statues stand in the public squares. The town even opened up a museum to the case. 30 years on, it's the town's identity. The one that should be better known came a decade earlier. On a single night in 1986, Brazilian air traffic control tracked around 20 unidentified objects, and the Air Force scrambled fighter jets to chase them. The pilots reported lights that simply outpaced them, and then the Air Force minister stood up and talked about it in public. A government openly admitting its own jets had chased things they could not identify. The south of the country had carried this reputation even longer. Back in 1947, a man named Jose Higgins in Paraná reported one of Brazil's earliest close encounters, the same year the modern UFO era was kicking off on the other side of the planet. So the lights over Paraná this month are not landing in a country that has never seen this before. They're landing in the one place that has been writing it all down for 70 years. And the timing is the strange part. This Brazilian wave is breaking the same month the United States finally cracked open its own files. May 2026, after a directive the president has signed back in February, the US government started releasing its own UFO archives through a system called Pursue. The files themselves were thin at best. Researchers called the first batch a shrug, as I mentioned in my last video. But the real story wasn't in the documents. It was that the president had to personally order his own government to go and find this information, and it still took months to appear. So two things are running at once. The most powerful government on earth admits it had to force its own files into daylight. And in the south of Brazil, in the very same weeks, ordinary people kept filming lights they can't explain. In a country that has never been shy about looking up. Obviously none of this proves anything, and I'm not going to pretend it does. The radar was clean the night of Campo Largo. Some of the wave footage was old. There are currently explanations on the table for most of it, and a phone at full zoom turns any distant light into a smear. All of that is true. But it's also true that a named investigator with nothing to gain by exaggerating looked at Campo Largo footage and said something happened there that's worth investigating, and that calling it alien would be premature. The reports kept coming anyway, and the one government that does keep files is the one watching the wave the closest. So I'll leave it where it belongs, with you. The farmer is still on his ridge outside Curitiba. He won't take the videos down, and somewhere in his messages the warnings are still landing, telling a man with a pixelated 40-minute clip that he's dealing with people more powerful than he knows.